Step right up, don't be shy. Nobody likes a blubberhead. Welcome to the K1GMM 3-Ring Circus. Lock your kids in the closet and grab some popcorn. Enjoy the show. Now, your host, the Maniac.
Good heavens. What's going on? I don't even know how to put this together. I have to do it while it's fresh. So first things first, we got to do our life hacks, man. April 23rd, 2019. And this is relevant to me, and I have a feeling this is pertinent to a lot of ham radio operators. Always feel tired, even after getting a good long sleep. You're probably dehydrated. Drink some water right when you wake up. If that doesn't fix it, I can tell you a warm glass of warm water will make you regular first thing in the morning. My aunt taught me that. She's 86 years old. So if you need to go take a poo, a nice glass of warm water first thing. What is that? Anyways, let's see. There's one thing I have to get to. What I'm going to do every stream, if you guys send me stuff, keep it short, pithy. Send me a picture of your shack. We'll keep the show us your shack thing going. I have one guy's name is Jonathan. He's KK7 Papa Whiskey. He sent me no text or anything specific about a station, but he sent a picture. And so I figured at the beginning of each stream, you guys want to do that? Send me a picture of your shack. I'll throw it in very first thing. So here you go. This is a picture of Jonathan's shack, KK7 Papa Whiskey. Not sure where he's located, but there you go. You can have a good look at that. Nice room, beautiful desk, and tabletop, which looks like it's full and loaded with everything you can possibly imagine. Very nice. Anyways, moving on. Okay, propagation. I'm going to try and keep this comprehensive and concise. Some things I've noticed. We talk a lot about antennas here, right, guys? Everybody's running all different types of antennas. Well, you know what I have here in this limited amount of space. It's not an enormous station. It's not even what I would call a big station. It's just a very modest station. It's nothing, and I kid you not when I tell you that the entire station is held together with zip ties and duct tape, because it is. It's a combination of plumbing, plastic plumbing, zip ties, and duct tape. Okay? Design Trek, hello from Seattle. Let me say hello to everybody in the stream. I know Jared's in there. We're going to try and pipe in some a little bit of Zello here, and I hear somebody walking around upstairs, and it's too early for my wife to be home, so I don't know what the deal is. It's kind of creepy. I have no idea what that's all about. Anyways, I digress. So I've been chatting with a friend of mine, LG7RHF, and he stumbled upon something very interesting, okay? You know how we talk about antennas here and throw about different options, and yes, this is relevant to propagation. Well, his experience over the past several days, he stumbled upon this by accident. Let me bring this into the equation really quick, okay? We all know, right, that we talk about like the different angles of radiation with different types of antennas and stuff like that. And I don't know that much. I'm a real hack when it comes to this stuff, but there's a couple things I do know, okay? If you have, let's say you have your transmitting station, right? And we went over this in the propagation. And you need to get, I'm point A, and I want to go talk to Martin, which is point B, right? Well, you gotta send your RF to the ionosphere. Let's just take 20 meters. So you need to hit that F layer, right? And get a bounce over to Martin. This will all make sense in a second. And this is really for new hams. Save you a lot of frustration, a lot of just horrible mental stress in trying to understand this. And this is what I think is happening. I don't know this for a fact, but the logical conclusion is what I'm going to get into. So sometimes you have, depending on how far the signal goes, you have what's called a multi-hop, right? So in other words, your signal will leave point A, your station, and it will go to the ionosphere, and it'll be reflected back down, and it'll hop again to the ionosphere, and then come back down, hop again to the ionosphere, and arrive at its destination. So what Al has noticed, and I've never heard anybody talk about this in real time, like I listen a lot on the HF bands. What Al has found is that he's running a delta loop right now, a 20-meter delta loop, and he's running a G5 RV. Okay? He just tried to work a friend of mine who's right behind me. He's about 20 miles away on 17 meters today. And this has happened multiple times over the past few days with different people. Now, he tried to work him. Keep in mind, Rick, my friend Rick, K2GB, is running, I believe it's a 3-element beam, a tri-bander, I think, on 2017-15. Maybe there's 10 meters there too. I don't know, but it's a 3-element, I believe. So Al was on, I can't remember which antenna, the G5 or the Delta Loop. I think it was the G5. They tried to work each other on 17. They couldn't work each other, and yet Rick was working into Eastern Europe at the same time. Now Al is in Western Europe. He's in the UK. So they both switched. You're going to love this. Think about the gain of that beam, right? You take a 3-element beam. They both switched to G5 RVs. Al switched to the G5 RV. Rick switched to the G5 RV. Boom. They made the contact. What the flippin' heck would be the cause of that? You're talking about a beam with substantially more gain than a doublet, right? It's directional. You think, man, that thing would punch through there like friggin' hot knife, like a screaming chainsaw through melted butter. Common sense. Wrong. We got talking about this. So I think, in Al, let me add this to this as well, this whole thing. Al has found that the two different antennas, now granted, neither one are beams, but they do have a different angle of radiation as far as the properties of those antennas go, right? He's found at certain times of the day, one antenna favors, let's say he's going to talk to Virginia. At certain times of the day, one antenna favors Virginia over the other. Now, what the heck is that? Same azimuth. Now, keep in mind also that this happened on 17 meters today within a very short time frame. We're not talking the difference between 10 a.m. and like 2 p.m. or 10 a.m. and 5 a.m. This was in real time as it was happening. Oh, well, let's switch to the G5 RV, see if we can do it. Boom. They did it instantly. So you can pretty much rule out like fluctuations in the ionosphere over a period of a half hour to an hours, right? So what could be causing that to happen? When I first started playing with this stuff, I was on 11 meters, and my first contact into Australia, on 11 meters, I was on the top of the mountain. I was running a Moxon rectangle off the back of the truck. See you, Brennan. And The guy I was talking to, his name was John. He was in Adelaide, Australia, southern tip of Australia, which is about 11,000 mile haul. And that was on 11 meters on the CB band. Now, he told me, he says, where are you pointed? We weren't that strong to each other, but we could actually chat. And I said, well, I'm pointed right into the middle of California. Now, if you look at in theory, if you look at the QTH Maidenhead grid square locator, and you get the actual bearing from where I am to where he is, that's where I need to point to actually go all the way down into the southern hemisphere of Australia. You have to keep in mind that the Earth is curved and the RF doesn't travel in a straight line linearly like we would think. So for me to actually go to the UK, I have to point 53 degrees, which is actually north of the UK, but the signal arrives in the UK. You see where I'm going? In all of Europe. That's how you do it with beam antennas. So what does this have to do with what I'm talking about? He told me, he said, well, can you get out and turn the beam a little bit further south? And I said, sure. So I went out and I moved it, I kid you not, maybe 5 degrees. I just gave it a tweak a little bit further south, completely lost him, disappeared. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida who basically taught me everything I know. He was a ham at the time, still is. I don't even know if he's still alive. His name's Bob. I talked to him after this. I explained to him what happened, and he said, well, you can't think strictly in the azimuth plane when you turn a beam antenna. When you're talking long path like that, if you get that contact, you never touch that antenna. Don't touch it, because he was explaining to me that it not only may change the azimuth of where your signal arrives at the destination, but depending on how the ionosphere is charged, it may come down in front or behind him as well. See, we think linearly, in other words, one-dimensionally, but depending on what's happened in the ionosphere, you change. If you move that beam, your signal goes up to the ionosphere, comes back down, you place that signal into a different portion of the ionosphere, which could be charged or it could be reflective in a different way. You see what I'm saying? So it can change the distance, not only the azimuth of where your signal arrives. So, excuse me. So, take into account what happened with Al, what's been happening with Al with 2 different antennas. Here we go. This is my explanation, and if somebody has anything to add, please do, because we're trying to understand this. You take a specific time of the day. Why is a signal stronger, let's say 400 or 500 miles, or let's say 1,000 miles deeper, further, than the signal is where you're trying to get to? In other words, he can't hear me, right? And yet I go from a beam antenna to a doublet or an OCF or a delta loop, which has virtually no gain compared to a beam. It's nothing. And all of a sudden we make the contact. There's only one explanation to that I can think of, and that is the angle of radiation. A beam by nature has, if you're out in the clear, will have what? Anywhere from 5 to 15 degree angle of radiation, right? So you go to a different antenna with a different vertical radiation pattern, it's going to go to the ionosphere and come down in a different place, right? So all this time I'm thinking, well, shoot, the band is closed to the UK, and we've seen this. Martin has said, I can't even hear you, and yet I have no problem working into like Serbia, into Eastern Europe, and yet Martin can't hear me. And I think to myself, well, maybe the band is closed. And I'm starting to think now the band isn't closed. It has to do with how the antenna is patterned. It doesn't make any sense why a beam antenna will not do the job that a doublet will, or a delta loop or something like that. But if you look at the patterns of these antennas and where we are at the solar cycle, I think it's quite possible and most likely probable that if you have the room run a couple different antennas for the same band. Al's seeing a difference between a delta loop and a doublet. That's crazy. Now, the delta loop is configured for moderately high angle of radiation. How could there be that much of, how could that make or break the contact between a delta loop and, let's say, a G5? Doesn't make any sense to me. Rick's on a beam, they couldn't make the contact. They went to G5s and boom, there it was. Is it the path or whatever? So I figured I'd throw that at you. Makes you think, doesn't it? Oh, I got to have the biggest monstrous antenna I can get. Well, sometimes that just is not practical, nor will it even work. So I let him go for a few days like this, and then I figured I'd present this if it kept happening, and it is. It's continuing to happen. So there are certain times when running a smoke and gun does you no good. That's basically what I'm saying. And it's true. It's happening. So let me shut up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to Zello. And I'm going to drop the key. And I know Jared's in there and Burbass is in there. So I'll just let those guys have at it. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave a 3 to 4 second pause. Tiltable beam, that's something I will address, Hank, which is incredibly, I've thought about that before because I live in a deep hole. There's some things I need to address about that. That is a very, very good point, and I'm not sure how that would work. Zach, and I know this may be boring the crap out of some people, but it is so important to understand this, and I don't understand it, and that's what I'm hoping. Maybe this will stir things up, and people will start thinking about this and share their experiences with their own antennas. Have you guys seen this before? It's really cool. Now, here's one thing I'm gonna kind of throw out there. Is this a characteristic of the bottom of a cycle? Okay. We are at the bottom of cycle 24. The F layer is complete crap. It is crap. Even compared to like 4 or 5 months ago. It's bad. Is this what happens at the bottom of a cycle? I don't know. So I'm shutting up. All right, over to the Zello. And let me make sure everybody can hear me. It is piped into the stream. So here we go. Let me put it in solo mode. Okay, you guys one at a time. Jared and Burbass, I don't know if that's actually your real name. Go ahead and share your real name, and I'll turn it over to you first and then over to Jared. You guys go ahead.
Okay, I'm on. It's Baron. It's actually... Oh, wait a minute. I got an echo for myself here. Damn. All right, let's try it this way. First name is Berend. Berend, and I go by Bear. And I'm going to pass the key here to Jared and try and figure out why I'm hearing myself.
Okay, really quick, Bear, make sure your YouTube is muted. You have to mute the YouTube audio, otherwise it will loop probably, I think.
I think with me is where I'm on the phone, Steve. I can't go to YouTube and then this at the same time. Interesting theory. Back in the 90s, well, I don't know if that's because the F layer was actually good then, but back in the 90s, had an Amtron 99 on a 5-foot pole. had a 3-element set of quads. I think I told you about that the other day. Australia could not get him on the beam for anything. The Amtron, no problem whatsoever. 5 foot off the ground. Now, this is kind of a interesting theory that I think everybody probably has a take on it, to be honest with you. I'm like you, it would definitely have to be the takeoff angle of the antenna. What happens when it goes to the ionosphere is beyond me. I have no idea, but it's one of those situations to where kind of what Callum did as far as phasing 2 or 3 verticals together versus say like a beam or a delta loops array. And somebody mentioned earlier too, Steve, about being able to adjust your beam, up, angle it. And it made me think of a guy years ago. He worked CW mostly, and he purposely tilted his beam up about
Looked like you dropped there, buddy. You still in there?
yeah, mine probably fell out or timed out or something there. But anyway, I met a guy. He purposely tilted his antenna about, I don't know, maybe 5 degrees at the max, his beam antennas. And he said that he would work people that I would never work or hear. And he was right, because and it's interesting this is brought up because back when I had my Delta loop up for 80, fed with ladder line, I had the same issue. Not really an issue, but the same experience as I did with the wire antennas, like the inverted V's and stuff. So yeah, I'm anxious to see how this all rolls out. It has to be the takeoff angle, in my opinion, right?
I think so. I do. I really believe that. It's one of those things. There's 2 schools of thought on this. I've heard guys poo-poo the fact that you can, we're going into, we'll leave it there for a second. I've heard guys poo-poo the fact that, hold on. The fact that you can tilt a beam and cover a different area. But I think that is actually true. I think that does work, and I've heard multiple stories, and you're another one. You're another nail in that coffin where that's actually worked before for them. You almost need, if you're going to run a beam antenna, you almost need an azimuth and elevation adjustment on it for this type of situation, don't you? Because it's got to be it. It has to be. It has nothing to do with the azimuth, but it has everything to do with the angle of radiation to the ionosphere, right? And Al's in there. Oh, good Lord. Put it over to Bear. Go ahead, man. You should throw some stuff in the pile.
Where is Al? Why is he not in here?
Yeah, I see we got 3 people in here now. Let me throw this into the pile. Don't assume at least what I've been gathering the past few months, don't assume that the ionosphere has different layers that are like shells, that are like spheres that lay next to it.
Yeah, you keep dropping out, Bear. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's probably because I'm timing out. I gotta fix that. I'll keep an eye on it. The way the propagation goes is I think it's sort of like radar, where our signal goes up to the excited electrons that are part of the ions in the ionosphere, and the exciting electrons kind of sort of retransmit. So that would go in all kinds of different directions. But what gets me is how come it goes out in the direction that opposite the direction it came in stronger. If anything, anybody's got anything to add to that, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I'm done for now.
Okay, repeat the tail end of that, Bear, so I got that straight. Just like the last. Repeat that. What you're wondering about. Repeat that again.
All right. Our signal goes up to the ionosphere. Now, the signal excites the free electrons in the ionosphere. This is what I'm gathering. And that sort of retransmits the signal. Based and how strong it is how strong our signal gets to it. Now, why it goes stronger opposite the direction from where the signal comes from, I'm not sure. I'm out.
Are you referring to backscatter or something completely different?
The backscatter would answer that, because if it's the excited electrons up there that are sort of retransmitting the signal to get the propagation, that would be a cause for backscatter, because one would think that that stuff would go off at 360 degrees from where it's hit. So that would be backscatter. Yeah.
Okay. Let me throw this at you regarding backscatter. I had a situation. I had more weird stuff happen when I used to play on 11 meters than I have so far in the past 4 years in ham radio. I don't know why, but I was talking to a guy in Europe on 11 meters one day, and I had this guy come back from and my stupid display is going crazy. I had this guy, I dropped the key, and this guy calls me from British Columbia. Now, I'm on the eastern seaboard. I'm running a 4-element 11-meter Moxon, right? And it's pointed at Europe. This guy calls me from British Columbia. And I'm like, what the? And that's behind me by like 2,500 miles. That's like West Coast, Northwest. So, and he's strong. And I said, we got joking about it, and I left the antenna right where it was. And I've seen backscatter before quite a bit. And hang on. And that was not backscatter. That was like Great Circle Route type crap. I kid you not. I was going all the way around. He was going all the way around. Because it was like a 7.8, 7.9 signal. And backscatter, to my knowledge, that doesn't happen out to that range. Like from here to, Midwest maybe, at the most. I remember reading about it a while back, but I thought like 2,000 to 3,000 mile backscatter. That's just bizarre. So that could be a path thing, and that's something else I was going to throw out there. Paths are weird. These things can take very bizarre paths. You could be pointed in a particular direction and work a station that you're not even remotely pointed towards. And if you turn that antenna towards them, you'll completely lose them. So yeah, mystery, right? Throw it back over to Jared. Oh, there's 4 in there. Okay, let me drop it and take a look who's in there.
I'll throw this in there real quick, Steve. Kind of another situation with the 3-element quads. I was shooting toward SoCal, Southern California, and got Southern Africa from me. And explain that one. Didn't get anybody whatsoever on the vertical antenna that day. So I don't know, it's almost like there's, like you're saying, like paths. It's almost like something is slingshotting your signal up and then backwards, or maybe it's making multiple small hops around the world, assuming the world is round and not flat. Many people think it's flat, but I don't. But
oh, we lost him. Let me keep.
It's cool the way, and it's interesting, and I've never really had anybody explain it to me on that. Somebody else pick it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring in MM7WAB. I'll bring you in here. Go ahead and let us have it. I don't know, Jay. It's that whole path thing. Like I'm talking, what I was addressing is direct, direct. But I mean, how does the path play into it? You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to get just some basic level of understanding of what's going on. And it flies in the face of, Al and I were chatting today, it flies in the face of all these guys. You have to have the biggest, baddest station, you can get. And that's not always the case. You don't need that. And that may actually hurt you to some extent. You see where I'm going? When you could run, a 10, 11, 12 dB gain beam, and you'd be better off on a friggin' dipole. You know what I mean? It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. That's kind of my point, But let's bring MM7WAB in. Come on in, and keys all yours, man. Take it.
Mike 7 Whiskey Alpha Bravo, Harry Paul in Ayrshire in Scotland, coming back to you. Very good evening to you both. And I've been messing about with a few antennas here since I passed the ticket the other week, and been on air less than a week so far with the new setup. Today I just finished putting up a horizontal delta loop. It's about 262 foot of wire up there. Made out of like D10 telephone wire. It's about 38 foot up, but like the southern tip of the triangle is about 5 degrees down on the others. And due to my south, I've got 700 feet of ironstone, so I don't receive to the south very well with the dipole. Got an 80 meter horizontal dipole. I've also got a vertical. I'm using them on a 40-year-old FT707 and an ICOM 756, and I'm getting some pretty good results with them. What does surprise me is the delta loops just outperforms the dipole by a good sort of 5S points or more on 80 meters and 40 meters. Very surprised with the way it's behaving. So if you've got the space, delta loop is definitely worth a try. If you don't have the space to string out the loop, dipole. I've been hearing stuff from a very, very wide range, South America, north of Canada. I've even heard a couple of VK stations just above the noise on 40 with the delta. With the dipole, but this delta is just outperforming it hands down. So well worth a try. But what surprises me, with the delta being pitched slightly down on the south, it seems to be hearing much better into the south of the UK for short range contacts. And I'm also getting Spain and all that coming blasting in, so it seems to be skipping over the hill to my south. It works great to the north because I've got a total clear view to the north there, right over the pole. But south was always a problem. The delta loop seems to have some sort of, I don't know whether it's a steeper angle takeoff, but it seems to work really, really nicely to the south over the hills now. And the hills are the big problem at my QTH here in Scotland. Anyway, I've waffled enough. Back over to you there, K1GMM from MM7WAB.
Okay. Quick question. 2 questions. Do you have 2 different antennas up? And are you able to, because I kind of missed that, I'm trying to keep track of things here. Do you have 2 different antennas up? Well, it sounds like it's fairly new antenna, so you may not have been able to, if you do have 2 up, have you been able to check simultaneously between the 2, like flip back and forth really quick, depending on, for different QTHs? Because it sounds like you know what the pattern is favoring, but just curious about that. And the second question, somebody, Al asked a question on the stream, how is it fed, Paul, the Delta Loop? Go ahead.
Mike 7 Whiskey Alpha Bravo returning. I do have 3 antennas up at the moment. I've got multiple receivers here, SDRs, all sorts of kit that I'm playing with. But yes, earlier on this evening, just before I come on the stream, I was on 80 meters, and I was directly comparing between the horizontal dipole and the delta. And the delta was consistently outperforming the dipole. It was definitely receiving stations to my south a lot clearer, sort of 5 S points or more difference, which really astounded me. I expected, a couple of S points, but the difference is quite significant. Using the ICOM 756 and the Fox Tango 707, and I've also got an FRG7 receiver, but that's on a separate antenna. So I was just basically comparing between the dipole, which I've had up in the air for quite a while, so I know how that behaves, and comparing it with the delta. The delta itself is actually fed with RG59 coax. It's about 45 feet of it. Nearly 55 feet of it, sorry. And 21 foot of that is wound as a common mode choke on a 4-inch former, which is approximately 3 feet from the feed point, just to stop common mode RF coming back down the feeder, etc. I've also got another choke just as it comes into the shack, and I've got that same setup on both antennas. I think there's maybe a foot difference in the coax, but that's not going to make a huge difference. But the difference in performance with the Delta is quite incredible. I expected it to be better than the dipole, but it has definitely surpassed my calculations. I did model them both on MMANA. I modelled both antennas, had a bit of a play around, and today was when I made a few adjustments to the Delta, and it is just astounding. If you get the chance to try one, it's definitely worth a bash.
Paul, I'm going to chime in here just a second. This is Jared, W4ZXT. Where are you feeding your loop? Are you feeding it at the top, toward the highest angle? Are you feeding it toward the bottom at the lowest part of the loop? I'm just curious. And 59 coax, is that 75 ohm cable? Go ahead.
Yeah, the coaxial is a 50 ohm coaxial, and let me think, the feed point is at one top corner. Effectively what I've got is a horizontal wire that's almost level, which goes from the west end of the site to the east end of the site. And then due south of both of them, due south of that line, is like the southern tip of it, which makes up the triangle. The southern tip's about 5 degrees down, it's about a 5 degree downward pitch from the horizontal wire that's due east-west, 5 degree downward pitch to the other pole on like the southern tip of it, if you like. And the feed point for it at the moment is on the west tip, the high tip. So it's effectively like having a flat antenna that goes east-west, and then the two ends of the east and west ends connect down across to the south end of my site on another pole that's a little lower. Yeah, and it is 50 ohm coaxial.
Good. The reason I was asking, I was getting ready to put one up, Paul. I'm going to have two. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take satellite arms and put them on each corner of the peak of the roof. And I'm going to put a piece of conduit. And I'm going to have two, let's see, one on each side of the roof. And it's going to shoot down at about, I'm trying to think, probably 60-degree angle toward the east. And I don't know if I should put two at the top and one at the bottom, which is probably what I'm going to do, and feed it at the bottom to make it vertically polarized, so to speak. And I may be getting this wrong, but there I was going to use a 4-to-1 current balun with a 1-to-1 choke, and then bring it up to the radio room with just 213 or something like that. So I'm just curious about different angles on the loops, how they receive and how they differ with propagation. And it sounds like yours is getting very, very good reports coming off the south now. So that's interesting. I enjoy learning about loops and antennas and all this stuff. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, that's great. I don't want to stray too far off track, but it is. Dave, you freak. Let me toss it right over to Dave. You guys hear enough of me. This is interesting, but I don't want it to go too far off track. My main focus here is I want to go back to the question: who has seen? Because every antenna is different, and this is what I'm starting to realize. What you think would work great for a particular thing at a particular time, a particular situation, may not be the best option. And this is true. Al has proved this. He runs a Delta loop and he runs a G5. I'm going to revisit this for any newcomers. There are certain times when trying to work the same QTH, he can work them on a G5 and not the Delta. And at other times, the Delta is better. Now you're talking single. Now today, he could not, both of them could not work each other, and one was on a 3-element beam. They went to the G5s and boom, they got each other. So there you go. I kind of keep things rolling along. I think Dave jumped in. What do we got? Dave? Yes, that's all I see in here right now. So Dave, go ahead and grab it, man. Good to see you. M6ENS, K1GMM.
From the Tower of Power. How are you, Steve, boy? Great to see you. Just going back to this Delta loop, I'm a huge fan. I put another one up today. So I've gone vertical and horizontal. Pattern-wise, you're looking at, you've kind of got 3 corners. So you've got 3 lots of... you got 3 lots of antennas, really. So you got three kind of weird lobes. And it might just have been a case of when he dropped the delta and went on to the kind of normal dipole, that the pattern was right at the time. Angle of the dangle, my friend. And yeah, you can put whatever you want up in the sky, mate, but if Mother Nature says it's not happening, it's not happening. But yeah, great to be on here, operating a TM7 here on network radios. And I think Paul's doing the same, actually. And yeah, my friend Harry Paul passed his foundation course a few days ago. So all that stuff that he's got that's propping his house up, he can actually operate. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, Dave. Good to see you and hear you, man. And Paul is right on this. I think I always say this, and I really believe this to be true. I kind of, always in the past have poo-pooed, so what? The soil sucks, or some people have better soil conditions than others, and an antenna will just work no matter where you put it. No, it's not the case, man. It's not the case. I have more crap going on here. I've got a valley full of water. I've got a huge metal roof which sits right in the middle of my property that's over 70 feet long. I know the antennas are seeing it. Who knows what the heck is happening with that? I always tell people, you can model things till you're freaking blue in the face. But the proof is in you gotta check it out. You gotta try it. That's where experimentation comes in, right? So I don't know. I always say what works for me may not work for you. My antennas are patterned here for a moderately high angle of radiation because that's what I need. Take ground wave out of the equation. That's what I need to get out of here. I will never be able, most likely, unless conditions come back to the way they were in 23, or maybe in the early stages of 24, I'll never be able to work long path here. It just doesn't happen because it takes so many hops because the angle of radiation to get halfway around the world. I can't have a low angle of radiation. It does me no good. It throws the RF right in the face of the mountain. So I guess what I'm trying to say is be very cautious. No matter what antenna you look at out there, take everything with a grain of salt. Ask yourself, look at your QTH, and analyze things. What is the best antenna I could possibly put up? Like some areas, well, I could work it off the top of the mountain now, but not from here. It ain't happening from here. I know it. It's not going to happen. My angle of radiation is radically different than yours, dude. Radically. I don't know how else to explain it. If I were to walk out and take a picture, I'm at 600 feet in elevation, right? And if you were to hold your hand like this, that's the angle of radiation I need to go west from here to clear a 4,000 foot high mountain. Ain't happening. Across the street, angle of radiation is about like this. So it's about 30 degrees. That's too high. I go up on the mountain, sure. Long path, not a problem. But down here, ain't happening. So when you look, we talk about antennas, everybody gets in this like antenna envy mode, right? You have to go deeper than that. So you have to look at your QTH and be willing to experiment and find out what's going to work best for you. Somebody with incredible soil conductivity can stick a 43-foot vertical on that thing and lay out a few radials, and they will smoke an 11-element 20-meter Yagi with that single vertical. You know what I'm saying? It's because the QTH. So when you hear people say location, 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 it is everything. It is everything. Antenna is secondary. You got to look at the location and then come up with an antenna system that works for that location. You see what I mean? I poo-pooed that. I thought, yeah, whatever. I don't care. It is about location. It really is. Let me dump it, and I'm going to toss it up in the air before I pull a plug here. And if anybody wants to grab it with any final thoughts, go for it. I just don't know what to say. I'm speechless. Go ahead, you guys, up for grabs.
Got K4 VUP. Yeah, Steve, if you can't get up to the top of that mountain, I would think that you'd have a hell of a lot of loss. One thing, if you're going to try and run it up, but why not put yourself a big repeater up there and transmit to that and let it go out? That's a thought. K4 VUP.
That is so funny, dude. Trust me, I've actually contemplated that. I'm like, okay, I could take a microwave link and microwave link the HF station to a transmitter up there, a transmitter and receiver, and run it all off of solar panels. The problem is that there's a bunch of hooligans around here and they'd steal it in a heartbeat.
That's a bummer. Well, I was just throwing it in, see if you already had thought of it. K4 VUP.
No, that's why I have a somewhat decent portal. Like, it's funny. I talked to Al and some of my friends around, and I go on the top of the mountain. I go up topside, and I hear things I don't hear down here. Like signals, the band could be just opening, right? And I'll hear signals about an S3 here down here. And within 20 minutes, and it's not the band opening. I know it's not because this happens every time. 20 minutes, I'll go up topside. And let's say I got a 5 to 9 dB gain beam down here on the valley floor. I go topside with a freaking magnetic loop, and the signals are S9 plus. So location is everything. That's all I'll say about that. So yeah, you gotta, and that's what I'd say to anybody. If you're in a bad spot, put together a slamming portable setup and get yourself out the door. Go find a great spot to run portable. Because if you can get up high, you don't need the gain. You don't need it. Just any old vertical stuck up, even a freaking ham stick. If you're up at over 2,000 feet where I go, like 2,100 feet in elevation, and your angle of radiation is literally to the horizon line, stick a ham stick on the back of the car. You'd be surprised at where you work. Compared to down here, it's pretty scary. Anything else from Jared, Paul? You guys want to tie it off? I'll let you guys do it, and then I'm going to yank the plug.
I think a lot of it is mystery, Steve. I'll add that in there. I've always called it the magic of ham radio. I've always heard elders talk like that too. There's just something magic about radio, which got me into the hobby. Was the magic?
No kidding,
Some
Jody.
things you can't explain. Some people try to explain and epically fail.
This place is ugly.
I don't know exactly how Owl's G5 is set up. Is it like 35 foot flat topping? I can't remember. I know he told me, but I mean, other than that, just look at the cases like we're getting huge signals on a rejection point of a beam. So I have no idea, man. I really don't know. Something to do with ground, maybe. Does the ionosphere absorb too much at certain times? Like you were saying earlier, does is this normal to be at the bottom of the sunspot for this to happen? I really don't know, man. I was hoping somebody would know, but I think if this theory was aced, we would probably know about it. You know, it may be in some kind of handbook or something, but I do know one thing, though, Steve. Anywhere from 20 meters to UHF, the weather plays a huge role here in band conditions. Now, you can expect that with like 6, right? And maybe 10 and 2 and 440. But 15 and 20, when we get a massive front rolling in, especially 2 fronts coming together before tornadic weather takes place, the band will open up a little bit, which is strange. So, I mean, weather, ground waves.
Dave, you're nuts.
Obviously, the ionosphere, different times of day, early in the morning, late in the evening. I can't remember what time he was trying to contact your neighbor. I don't know if it's in the middle of the day or maybe in the morning. I don't know, man. It's kind of a mystery, but it's a cool mystery. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Paul with the antennas. If I were him, I would sit and play with a switch box, like a antenna switch, A, B to C. I would sit there and just do that all the time, just to see. I mean, because it really piques my curiosity. So, you guys go ahead. W4ZXT.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's the most fascinating part of the hobby, and it's what I was talking to Al about. It's what makes everything work. We can't do squat without it. So it begs the question, though. So this is my parting thought, and then I'm going to yank the plug. My question is, well, my challenge. I'm going to throw a challenge at you guys. For those of you that have multiple antennas up that will work on the same band, pick a QTH, okay, that you're hearing on one antenna and flip back and forth between the two. And start hunting around at certain times of the day. And when you're on the radio and you're not in the mood to talk, just flip back and forth between the two antennas and make a note of what you're hearing. How strong are they? And then let's say in the afternoon, right, you're listening, let's say you guys in the UK, you're listening to stations on the Eastern Seaboard, in the central part of the Eastern Seaboard of the United States, Virginia area, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, Carolinas. If you hear stations there at, let's say, an S7 on a G5RV, and then you go back in the afternoon and you hear stations there, same area, and they're stronger on the other antenna than they are on the G5RV. Vice versa, in other words, what I'm saying? Be really cool. Really cool to see that, because that's kind of exactly what we're talking about. Hence, the reason to have a couple different antennas. And you've heard me say this before. I'm not a big fan of redundancy, but boy, I'm starting to change my tune. There are times when a high gain antenna does you no good because of the pattern it's radiating. What the heck good is it? Al saw that today. Rick is snorting fire at him and he can't hear him. He goes to a G5 and boom, there he is. Figure that one out. So there are times when multiple antennas are a good thing. So I retract that statement on redundancy because I'm an idiot. I'll catch you guys later. Have a good evening and good to see you. The Zello thing's kind of cool. We'll do this a lot coming up. I think this works good. You guys chime in really quick. Say your 7-3 on Zello, and I'm going to yank the plug. We'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick. KN4 VUP. 73, everybody. I think this is good, Steve, and we might even get a net and we could just sit and talk about antennas and how to make the front lawn greener, which is probably about the same thing. So anyway, we'll talk to you again. 73, everybody. KN4 VUP.
Mike 6 Whiskey Alpha Bravo, Harry Paul in Scotland here, just popping in again. Yep, it's been a pleasure to catch with you here, and very nice to hear you've set up this little Zello channel there. As you probably already know, very active on the Zello system for quite a while. Actually admin and moderator on 12 channels on Zello, including SSTV test channels and yeah, SSTV test channels, and also Digimodes test channels, which are handy for getting used to using the software before you go live with it on HF, so you don't bug everyone. Anyway, I'm going to have to go. It's been a pleasure. I'll say 7-3 just now and look forward to the next time. Have fun with your antennas out there, folks, and do some comparisons, find out what works at your QTH. What works here might not work very well 10 miles away. And I've noticed, even just going between two different dipoles of slightly different designs or at slightly different heights, it can make a huge difference. You just got to find what works for you at your QTH. 7-3 for now from Mike 7 Whiskey Alpha Bravo.
That's a great comment.
I'd like to wish all my friends and radio users a very, very, very good evening. But I don't like any of you, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Take it easy, Steve. Good to see you, my friend. Paul and everybody else, have a good one. And I'm on holiday this week, so don't do too many live streams, Steve. I'll be kicking around. Take it easy, everybody. 7-3.
And Dave fits right in here like a glove, don't he? See you, Dave, Paul, Bear. Well, Steve will have to do this more often, man. This is good stuff. And Paul, let us know, man. Even if you have to take notebook paper and switch between the antennas, just, nonchalantly just write down time of day and the signals. Sort of like working conditions. And let us know what you find or discover there. Interesting stuff to me. Antennas never bore me. I can talk about antennas until way up in the morning, so and definitely more than one is a bonus. Definitely. Unless you're Martin and you're screwed. Steve, I'll catch you later, buddy. Good hearing you guys. 73s, W4ZXT. And Martin, I love you, buddy. I just got to pick on you. You know that, right?
All right, you guys. I'm out of here. Good to see y'all. What I'm going to do, I think what we need to do is we need to bring this group together off the air. So I think Paul, man, he fits right in, doesn't he? Over in the, well, you all fit in here. You're in here for a reason. It's because you like to be tormented, probably. So, gosh, there's so much knowledge floating around. I see it in here. It'd be great to just organize a Zello sched, Heck, Zello's easier than Echolink. Screw Echolink and All-Star. Who cares? I don't care about that. Seriously. Everybody's got to get an Echolink node number and whatever. We'll just come in on the K1GMM live stream. Anybody who wants to, find me on Zello. Go to do a search in the channel section for K1GMM live stream. It'll pop up there. Go ahead, and if you need authorization, send an authorization request, and I will authorize it, and we'll start setting up skeds, man. And you guys, we don't even have to do a sked. If you see people in there and they're online and active, give them a call. I don't care. That's what it's there for. So, if, share some experiences, and maybe you guys can give me some ideas. And I learned from you guys. I just want to tell you that. I am not experienced with any of this crap. I'm only been licensed 4 years. I've been in radio for longer than that, but there's just so much to this hobby that I couldn't scratch the surface in this madness in 5 lifetimes. So yeah, it's good stuff. And that's it. I'll catch you guys later. Have a good night. And this is K1GMM. My name is Steve. I'm over here in Vermont. And we'll be back. I got to put up a video. I got a new Raspberry Pi thing I'll show you guys, which is really cool. It's running the Spy server right now. Spy server's online. If you want to use it, it's active when I'm not on HF. If you try to log on to it and you don't hear anything, it's because the dongle is switched off. I have to do that if I'm transmitting on HF, otherwise I'll blow the front end out of it. So it asked me about the switch, so I'll give you an update on that. Oh yeah, something I meant to mention. I am going to post notifications in Facebook as well. So, and I'm actually still transmitting on Zello. I didn't know that. So, I'm going to post the notifications because not everybody I've been hearing gets the notifications through YouTube, from YouTube when I post, when I put up a notification that I'm going live, or when I go live, which I do sometimes. I just pull the trigger and start the stream. I believe you have to be logged into Google. A lot of people aren't. So what I'll do is, if you're part of the Facebook live stream group, if you're not, go ahead and send a request. We'll get you in there and you'll get notified through there. I'm going to start posting notifications there. If you want notifications through YouTube, go to my channel. I don't care if you subscribe. I'm not monetized. It doesn't make any difference to me. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for hee-haws. So there's a little bell icon on the YouTube channel. Click that and you'll get notified if you're logged into Google. I believe that's how it works. Anyways, 7-3 guys. We'll catch you later. Out of here. Thanks for making this interesting and helping me out. Appreciate it.